Aloha, welcome to Jordan's Journal. Today I have my special guest, Richard Medeiros, and he's here to talk about AIM Hawaii. So welcome, Richard.
Hey, thank you for having me, Representative.
Thank you. Could you explain what AIM Hawaii is a little bit?
Okay. AIM Hawaii, or AIM High, stands for Advocate, Impact, Mobilize Hawaii. And it is a youth civic engagement project that we're working on, targeting youth aged 16 to 25 throughout the state of Hawaii.
Wow, 16 to 25.
Yes. We picked 16 because in the state of Hawaii, 16 is the lowest you can be to register to vote, even though you can't vote until you're 18.
Oh, so civic engagement, you mean with the elective process, voting process, legislative?
We mean in all aspects of civic engagement, from basic community organizing all the way to lobbying and talking to your representatives in Washington, D.C.
Oh, creating our future
leaders, but we're creating them today.
Okay, so you said actually statewide, so you outreach to all the islands?
Yes, our project is funded by Kellogg Foundation.
Okay.
They have an initiative called the America Healing Initiative.
Okay.
So our real goal is to address racial inequities to civic engagement. And Hawaii is one of the pilot projects. We were selected by the Asian Pacific Islander American Health Forum up in San Francisco and Washington, D.C. And we are a collaboration of 3 different organizations in the state, the Pacific American Foundation, the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, and the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs.
Oh, okay.
So we've been using all of our organizations' networks. Last year, December, we did outreach to all the neighbor islands except for Lanai and Molokai, which we are still planning on doing.
Okay.
And we reached out to try to create a group of about 20 youth. We brought them all to the Capitol last December to have our initial convening. And basically we're reaching out to find the youth that have never had their voices heard before. So we're looking for the rural areas, we're looking for the Waianaes, we're looking for Kahuku, we're looking for Honoka'a on the Big Island. We're looking to grasp a real segment of the youth population that doesn't normally get to participate in the process.
Wow. So how do you seek them out? Do you hold meetings? Do you engage with schools or community colleges?
Well, that's been an ongoing process.
Okay.
We've been using various methods to try to seek them out. We initially started with community meetings, which we know works on Oahu, and then we flew to Kauai. We had a few come. We went to Maui. Nobody came.
Oh.
So we were looking at different ways to outreach to our youth. So we've contacted school counselors, the UH system throughout the state, various connections that we have using the Hawaiian Civic Clubs network as well to try to find the right youth and basically trying to build this coalition of youth to take over the government.
Take over the future government, right?
Yes.
So you're saying you're going to kind of keep it to about 20 or so students?
We're looking at our advisory team to be a statewide youth advisory council of about 20.
Oh, okay.
However, once our curriculum rolls out, we're going to make that available to the public in Hawaii.
Well, for our public school system or engagements?
We're not sure what it looks like yet, but what we're planning on doing is a series of 6 webinars for our youth.
Wow.
And we're still not even sure what that's going to look like. We're writing the curriculum as we speak.
Wow.
And we're looking at 6 different sessions, and then we're going to be doing workshops on each of the islands so that they can get that one-on-one feel as well. And the first one is going to be on identity. So self as well as community identity.
Wow.
How we see ourselves as Americans, how we see ourselves as Hawaiians or Samoans or Tongans, and how we see ourselves as people from the Waianae Coast or people from Ka'u on the Big Island. So we're trying to do a holistic way of looking at who we are so that we can look where we want to go.
Wow, so there is some participation on the students that come and engage with this, right? I mean, there's going to be a commitment on their side.
Yes, there's a commitment. It's going to be I don't want to call it a 2-year commitment, but it's about a 2-year process. Okay. We've started with a bunch of our youth already this year. We're still looking for more, so there's more we can always try to accommodate more. But the actual curriculum, once it's up, I look at it as these 20 are going to be our test subjects so that we can tweak it and then make it available for the masses, whether that be online through actual school instruction and curriculum or whatever other media we can figure out how to roll this out with.
Okay. So we're really not focusing on specific nationalities, right? I mean, it's open to everybody?
It's open to everybody,
okay.
Yes. We're not focusing on specific nationalities. we're actually trying to seek out as many different as we can.
Oh, okay.
We know that in Hawaii we often focus on our Hawaiian youth, and we are using the Hawaiian culture as a host culture to try to use as our example in our curriculum. But we are definitely seeking out Samoan youth, Tongan youth, Asian youth, Filipino youth, Micronesian youth in particular as well, because we want to try to make this program reach out to all the people of Hawaii, not just a certain group, a certain ethnic background.
Yeah, so we're not even focusing on just them staying here and having civic engagement. They could possibly keep these lessons that they've learned and take it abroad, nationwide or worldwide,
Absolutely. We're trying to build, at least 20 of these leaders so that they go back to their communities as community leaders, and they know how to, for example, host a public meeting, or how to organize a letter to write to your representative, and they know who to seek out, whether it be council, state, or federal. And for example, earlier this year in June, I had the pleasure of taking 4 girls and 2 boys to Kona.
Wow.
The 2 boys were from the Big Island, the 4 girls were from the other islands. And we went to a cancer awareness training on cancer policy. And very interesting because these trainings are held all over the country from the Asian and Pacific Islander American Health Forum. But this is the first time that they really had youth attend one of them.
Wow.
So day 1, rocky. The youth didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
We flew in that morning, so we didn't sleep the night before, and we show up and it's on numbers and policy, and the girls at lunchtime are like, oh, I want to go home so bad. I'm tired of this. And then one of them was like, oh, but you see all the old people over there, they're just staring at us like we don't belong there.
Wow.
I told them, they're not staring at you because you don't belong there. They're staring at you because they're honored to have you. And then we went through the whole first day. And then the second day, when we actually got to present, and even before that, somebody from the health forum approached me and said, excuse me, but can you make sure your group doesn't sit together? I said, how come? He said, because everybody wants to meet them. Everybody wants to talk to them.
Wow.
They're so amazed to see young people that were actually trying to get involved in the system. And all of these organizations throughout the state that was at this, Department of Health, one of the senators from the Big Island, they're all wanting to meet these kids and to pick what's on their brains. And amazingly, the policy priorities that our students talked about earlier in the year, before we even went to this, were some of the same problems that they were talking about for the older generation on the Big Island.
Wow.
In terms of transportation and getting to places on the neighbor islands. So the older generation and the younger generation, this multi-generational mix really worked well for them. The ones who attended really had a good time. They got to present what they were doing, and they got to interact with senators, with the chief of staff for the mayor of the Big Island.
Wow.
So they got to meet some pretty important people, and they got to feel pretty important as well.
Wow, that's a great opportunity for our youth.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, them walking in there going, oh, well, this might not be for us, probably to at the end, like, we don't want to go home, right?
Yeah, they're like, oh, can we do another one of these?
Wow,
And I
that's
said,
great.
No, not yet, but soon.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, I really try to do that. I try to, get youth involved and the different things we do. And I think this program will be very interesting if we're going to go across the islands and target a specific age bracket. At some point in time, do you think you might take it down maybe to the 12 or 13-year-olds, or might that be a little bit too young?
Well, in my opinion, that's not too young.
Okay.
But, and here's a plug, the Rotary Club used to do things like this.
Wow, they really did. Okay.
They used to do the youth vote, and I would love to see a Rotarian or somebody from the Rotary Club try to bring that back.
Wow.
It was something that I participated in when I was a kid, and we don't have it anymore. But this was for, all school children, kindergarten through high school. And, something like that would be very, I think, beneficial for their education in terms of civic engagement.
Yeah.
It makes them feel like they belong.
Oh yeah, they'll feel like they're a part of the process instead of, somebody like me. I kind of didn't know that when I was a teenager, or even in my 20s, and I kind of didn't get involved with civic engagement until maybe my late 20s, which well, I lost, almost 15 years there where I could have been.
You lost a lot of the energy that you
Yeah,
had as you
you
were
lose a
younger.
lot of the energy and maybe those different thoughts as a youth, seeing a different perspective as compared to somebody who might be in their 40s that get a little bit more conditioned.
Yeah.
And we don't see it with different angles. So I think this is a great idea with working with youth. And so right now you have representation from 4 or 5 islands, or
We have decent representation from all the islands, but I'm sure my contact information will be available on the show.
Okay.
If anybody wants to be involved, you can definitely get a hold of me.
Okay.
Not just students, if teachers want to hear more about what we're doing, or counselors, by all means contact me. And I'm sure we can find room for any student who wants to participate in our program.
so you'd be open to working with maybe a high school program that's already doing some kind of civic program,
Absolutely. And
or maybe a social club that
we're
might
totally
wanna get
open
involved.
to working with them or helping them, and we're totally open to sharing ideas with them as well.
Wow.
We do have some resources. We've been lucky enough to have our lead team go to Washington, D.C. 2 times already for this project, and we've met with our delegation over there. We had a great time with Congresswoman Gabbard as well as Congresswoman Hanabusa,
Wow.
and Senator Hirona has also appeared at one of our events over there. So we're definitely trying to engage on the national level as well.
Wow.
Because I wanted to try to provide 4 different layers of government to the kids. The layer that we always see is the United States Congress,
Yeah.
and that's what's always in the news, and that's who our kids see. They hear their parents complaining about it, and that's one level. Then you see the state, which only comes up every now and then, where people actually hear
Yeah.
about it. You see the city and the counties in the different islands, but then I wanted to also include a community level, that because we do govern our own communities, whether we realize it or not.
Oh, yeah.
There are
We
trends
do.
that exist, and we want to show our kids that not all leaders are politicians.
Yeah.
With all due respect, you have the title representative, but that doesn't mean that you're the only leader of the community.
That's correct. Yeah.
And we want to make sure that our kids realize that you don't have to hold that title to be respected and a leader in your community.
That's true. I think that's one of the things I realized coming in here into the House of Representatives, that it's not you. It's the people that are around you. It's your staff. It's other individuals that support you with writing resolutions or bills or doing research for you. So I see that the more people we can get involved with civic engagement, not necessarily saying become an elected official or a governor or a president, we need those individuals that'll have that institutional knowledge that always stays there to help move these processes forward. And I think this is a great idea. I'm truly supportive of something like this.
Well, for example, some of our kids have worked on, prior to joining our program, the Hawaiian Academy at Farrington High School actually got a resolution passed a couple years ago.
Wow.
So, I mean, we're talking 16, 17-year-olds who know how to write white papers, who know how to go and lobby the government, who know how to testify in committee hearings.
Wow.
They know the process better than I'd argue a lot of adults know it.
Yeah.
And they've been able to do it, they've been successful at it.
Wow. That's what we really need to do. Not to say that a lot of our adults don't know how to engage with the government, but I think the more people that we can give this education to on any type of level, and that could be helping with a master plan and how do you submit comments, or helping with a community plan, or helping with supporting a bill or not supporting a bill, or even
writing a bill.
writing a bill. Yeah, I mean, because with our legislative process in here, we're open to taking bills or recommendations for bills or resolutions as representatives and senators. We're open to doing that. We can introduce almost anything that somebody would ask us to, as long as it fits in certain, protocols. But and anybody can request that.
Well, the amazing thing, when we brought in the neighbor island youth to Oahu last year, and this is something that even I didn't know about, the public access room that we have here in the Hawaii State Capitol.
Yes, we do.
I interned at the Oregon State Capitol when I was in college, and I have to go through 3 different layers of security just to get to work every day.
Wow.
And when it comes to actually doing research, the Capitol wasn't a place that I could do that. And then to see our kids that don't even realize this, that they can come over here, that they have free Wi-Fi that they can do research with, that they have a mini library that'll help them step by step learn how to get a bill passed.
Yeah.
and that you don't even have to go through security. You can go and knock on any representative or senator's door and possibly get a meeting with them just by going in.
Yeah.
That's something that I think is very unique to Hawaii, that other states could possibly learn from our model of having such an open government that we can have this dialogue with in a very easy way.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes us unique here. And if we can get our youth engaged in that, and they can start saying, hey, I can do this. I can become part of this. And I believe the earlier you get involved with it, the better you're going to be in the long run. And I really like this idea, especially when we're going to engage with some of our disadvantaged groups, because we can use some other Native Hawaiians.
Yes,
we can use
absolutely.
some Pacific Islanders here. I mean, I think that would really help lift up a lot of those different causes, and I think this is a great idea.
Well, one of the main concerns that we had when we first were looking at how to do our outreach was we wanted to have a good cross section of the population of Hawaii. So when we're going out and we're looking at what areas we're going to be recruiting in, part of it was hit and miss, that we just decided, this is a good place. But a lot of it was, we want to reach the youth that have never been reached before, because when you look at it, those are the adults that have never been reached before as well.
That's correct, yeah.
So if we can start that trend when they're teenagers and young adults, we can plant that seed that will nurture them later in life, so that if an issue comes up in the future that really affects their community, they'll know exactly how to help their community.
Yeah. And I think your focus may be on those neighbor islands in those rural areas, because many of those individuals out there feel we're Oahu-centric, and we don't get to participate. So if we can start building that new mindset going forward, that yes, we do hear you, you do have a voice, and maybe youth always guides where we're going to go. I think that's great.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I really wanted to focus on with the neighbor islands, was showing them the capital may physically be on Oahu, but that doesn't mean that you don't have access to the capital where you are.
Yeah.
Because your legislators have to go home at some point.
That's true. Yeah.
And with technology, they're so lucky. As a teenager growing up in the 90s, when the internet was just really starting, I didn't have the same access that they do. But now to do video conferencing and teleconferencing, it's so easy for them that in some ways there's really going to be no excuse for tomorrow's leaders not to have access to the government. Because it's from the comfort of your own home, you can teleconference with Washington, D.C. or New York.
Yeah, correct. I mean, that our disadvantage would be the time difference between the East Coast and here, but you're actually correct. With technology we have today, you can be in Ka'u, and you can see what's happening in a hearing, or be able to participate and have your voice heard. And we're still moving a little bit forward in that, in these walls, trying to get, teleconferencing and video conferencing live during, hearings, as well as the city. I think the city might be a little bit further ahead than us, but, we need to say, hey, it's right there. We want you to participate. How can you be the new leaders, right? Is that what I'm hearing? How can you be the new leaders in your areas and bring more on, right?
Exactly, and I believe that it also comes down that it is a government of the people. So the people decide what the government can and cannot do.
Correct.
So I want our children and our youth and our next generation to realize that the government exists for them. It doesn't exist in spite of them. It exists for them. So if they have concerns or if they have issues and they say, this is how we communicate, the government should start communicating like that.
Yeah, they should. I mean, in many of the hearings that I hear and hear, the common theme that always pops up is for our next generations and our following generations. So the theme is always about our youth. And like they heard when you took them to the Big Island seminar, yes, you are valid. We want you to engage with, the elders and say, hey, we want to hear from you. We want to help mold you. We want to help, guide you in our future leaders. I mean, because we're only here holding the places for the future generation. And I think this is a great program to have that civic mindness and the engagement, wherever they may take it.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what we want to be clear, that just because we're using the state as a model or the city as a model, that doesn't mean that it can't be used in different avenues. It's something that can be used just as simple as holding a community meeting about a controversial topic. You know, it takes a community to make a decision, and I believe that our government will hear when communities want to speak.
Oh yeah.
But the issue is getting them to speak.
Yeah, and I think, you know, especially when youth come to speak before our body, we really do kind of straighten up and listen a little bit more, because it takes a lot for a youth to get here. I mean, they're not like an average citizen where they can just drive here on their own. I mean, they have to take extra effort to get here, or you know, go through testimony or research and stuff like that. So I think the youth get a lot more validity. I think what you saw with them, like, are they staring at us? And it was, no, really, they were like, wow, very impressed.
Yeah, they're impressed
that these youth are stepping up. And I think that's going to make my generation feel great, because we always have to look for people that are going to step in our shoes when we're no longer here, or no longer can do this on a day-to-day basis. And I always hope that we have that somewhere. I really appreciate, you know, this program. I think I appreciate what you guys are doing, and looking at these different rural communities and outreaching to neighbor islands, as well as our youth. We're going to keep going further, right? I mean,
we're going to keep pushing with this. We have some ideas that we're still working with. One of the ideas is a legislative internship program.
Wow.
Where we want our youth to, especially our college students. It's a little bit more difficult for the high school students, but our college students can definitely take a couple hours out of the week, we hope, during session, to either shadow a legislator or to follow a bill from beginning to end. So that they can participate in that process. Our neighbor island youth, we're looking at working with their city and counties, so that we can still provide something similar to that. So we want to make sure that they not only are just getting the book knowledge, because, you know, as a curriculum writer, I can figure out how I think it's supposed to look for you, but our kids don't learn like that all the time. They learn by doing. Yeah,
hands-on.
So you know, we want to take them places. We took them to Waikoloa Local Fish Pond to meet with local community leaders. They dredged part of it. They cleaned out. You know, we did a work day over there. And they also got to interact with community leaders in Kaneohe to see, you know, we saw this problem 20 years ago, and now it's being fixed, and, you know, we kept at it. That's the kind of time commitment that they have to look at into. Sometimes it takes a generation.
Sometimes,
And sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes 20 years. So our youth have to be prepared for that. But they can also see how rewarding it is for the older generation to see that the fruit of their labor is actually being harvested now. And that's what we want to do. We want to implement that feeling throughout the entire state of Hawaii, so that nobody can say that my community wasn't good enough, that we couldn't fix this problem. We can fix this problem. We have the knowledge to fix our problems. And I believe that knowledge is in our youth. They just don't know how to express themselves to the right people and to organize their thoughts properly to get that out.
Wow, I really appreciate this. This is great. I mean, no, because having that hands-on, having them participate and really truly understand, sometimes it does take a generation, you know, to make things happen. And the more that we can get involved with that, especially our youth, I think we'll be better off in the long run. You know?
Well, we do have some good programs that are already in existence. For example, Children and Youth Day, which next year we're going to be a bigger part of. Our youth, this year, some of the members of our youth went to the Native Hawaiian Convention.
Wow.
The Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement does their convention in September. They went there and they had this great idea that they want to do their own convention.
Wow.
So we're looking at, hopefully, crossing our fingers, doing a statewide youth convention next year in conjunction with Children and Youth Day, so that we can put together a youth legislative package to present for the 2015 legislature.
That's great. That's awesome.
Well, that's grassroots from beginning to end.
That truly is. Wow.
So our goal is after they've learned everything that we think they need to know, and whatever they think that whatever other questions they may have, that they'll be able to take that knowledge and that ability and to actually hold their own little caucus. And, you know, they already go to the Keiki caucus meetings sometimes, but to actually have their own, where senators not telling them what to do, that
Empowerment,
they're
yeah.
leading themselves,
Yeah.
and they're creating their own legislative package, and they're going and knocking on doors and, here up, Jordan, this is what the youth of your community would like to see.
Yeah, wow.
Imagine how powerful that's going to be, and imagine how humbling for the representatives
Oh,
to have
yeah.
youth come in and
Oh,
tell
yeah.
them this is the problems in your community.
I think that would be great. I am so engaged with that.
That
That's
would
going
be
to
a
be
great
awesome.
program.
Yeah.
That's my real goal for the
Mm-hmm.
next year and a half, to be able to have our youth not just hear about the process, not just watch it on TV, but to actually go down and talk to the governor and say, this is why you should vote this way, or this is why you should veto this bill, or this is why you should push this bill. And how empowering that will be for all the generations of our state to get together around the youth, because they're the ones that are going to have to deal with tomorrow.
That's right. They're
The
ones.
older generation,
Yeah.
we're even at my age, I'm not planning on seeing 50 years from now, but the youth will.
Yeah.
And the decisions that your generation and my generation makes, they live with. So they need to be the ones to come to the table and say, hey, don't do this.
Yeah, wow. I truly appreciate you coming. This is really exciting. And I'm sure they're going to be putting up your information so they can contact you via email or phone, right?
Yes.
So again, thank you very much, Richard.
No, thank you for having me, Rhett.
I truly enjoyed you coming today. I'd like to say thank you for joining us on Jordan's Journal, and we'll see you soon. Aloha.